Gather round, dear friends, and lean in close. Yes, closer still, for I have a tale that shimmers like sun on the Aegean Sea and thunders like chariot hooves on Trojan ramparts. The saga of the Trojan War and the fateful fall of Troy. Prepare yourselves for heroics, heartbreak, cunning trickery, and, if I may be so bold, just a smidge of comedic relief. For even in war, one must chuckle at the absurdities of divine meddling. It all began, as many epic tragedies do, with a party. The wedding of Peleus and Thetis promised gaiety and ambrosial feasts, until Eris, the goddess of discord, crashed the soiree. Not invited, long story involving a rash prank and a slightly embarrassing argument over thunderbolts, she tossed a gleaming golden apple inscribed "To the fairest." Immediately, Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite began bickering like schoolchildren over a last fig. Who, they demanded, was most beautiful? Panic swept the heavens. Zeus, hoping to avoid a divine catfight, pointed to a mortal judge. Paris, prince of Troy, reclined on his hillside, grazing sheep and blissfully unaware that his next career move would be international adjudicator. Swayed by Aphrodite's promise of love's grandest prize, Helen, queen of Sparta and world-renowned haughty, Paris awarded her the apple. Poor Hera and Athena seethed. Poor Sparta found itself in diplomatic crisis. And poor Troy. Well, let's fast forward to the fireworks. Helen, already whisked away by Paris, it's debated whether by force or mutual admiration, sailed to Troy like a Greek tourist on an ill-advised adventure. Back in Sparta, King Menelaus landed in a fury so hot it nearly melted the palace columns. He summoned his brother Agamemnon, spiritual head of the Achaean cause, who noted that decades earlier all Helen's suitors swore an oath. Should Helen ever be snatched away, they'd unite in arms to bring her home. And so they did. Because let's face it, you can't just let your buddy's wife get stolen. Soon, Myrmidons, Achaeans, and Danaans, honestly, the ancient Greeks were lousy with nicknames, assembled on Aulus's shores. There were Achilles, almost divine in prowess, but allergic to authority. Odysseus, sharp-tongued and sharper-witted. Ajax, who could hurl a boulder like a careless giant, and many more whose names would echo through the ages, or at least in bardic karaoke nights. 10 years they laid siege to Troy. Imagine that. 10 long summers of roasting lamb on spits, firing arrow volleys, and debating which of you has the saddest backstory. Paris dueled Menelaus. Hector, Troy's champion prince, clashed with Ajax. Achilles, sidelined by a quarrel with Agamemnon over a war prize. Poor Briseis, sulked in his tent until Patroclus begged for mercy, and eventually paid the ultimate price wearing Achilles' gear. When news of Patroclus's death reached him, Achilles returned to battle with more fury than a storm at sea. The fields ran red, shields cracked like pottery, and Hector, noble Hector, fell before Achilles' rage. The grief of Queen Hecuba, the wailing of Priam, the cosmic to-do of the gods, witnessing mortals staggering under fate's weight. Oh, it was all terribly, terribly moving. Never forget, the gods were the original NPCs in this drama, meddling at every turn. Hera and Athena favored the Greeks. Apollo and Aphrodite stood by the Trojans. Zeus tried to keep score, but was easily persuaded by a bribe of nectar and promises of warm tempers. Juno, Hera's Roman alias, would have rolled her eyes, but Olympus had no beanbag chairs, so she stomped instead. When the Trojans grew hopeful, thanks to a clever ruse that lowered the Greek spirits, Apollo sent plagues, Hera sank ships, and Poseidon stirred the waters to tip chariots. You name it, the gods did it, all to remind mortals that in love, war, and the outcome of your dinner plans, free will is somewhat optional. As the war dragged on, and as Troy's walls proved too stout to breach by battering ram alone, Odysseus, caffeine-fueled by wit, conceived the grandest trick in military history. Let us pretend to give up, he proposed between sips of wine, and leave behind a colossal wooden horse as an offering to Athena. The Greeks would sail away, the Trojans bring the horse inside as a trophy, and, surprise, a crack team of soldiers would emerge at night to throw open the gates. The plan worked like clockwork. The Trojans debated. Some warned, "Beware Greeks bearing gifts." But curiosity, and perhaps a pinch of jealousy, won out. They dragged the horse through the gates amid cheers. That night, while the city slept, and maybe downed a few too many cups of victory wine, the Greeks slipped out, opened the gates, and let loose hellfire and steel. Troy burned under a sky streaked with smoke. King Priam fell defending his palace. Cassandra's prophecies, always correct but cursed to be ignored, echoed through the ruins. Aeneas, noble survivor and eventual forefather of Rome, but that's a tale for another evening, led a ragtag band of refugees into an uncertain world. Yet, even as the city crumbled, rumor says someone, perhaps a minor Trojan guard, stole a vase from the wreckage, mumbling, "Well, if you can't beat 'em, at least loot 'em." If ever proof were needed that humor survives despair, there it is. So ends the saga of the Trojan War and the fall of Troy, a chronicle of love and betrayal, of gods who played dice with mortal lives, and of heroes who burned bright, if briefly. From Homer's verses to every campfire storyteller since, Troy stands both as warning and inspiration. Great cunning can topple great walls, and the human heart, whether Greek or Trojan, beats to a rhythm both tragic and at times delightfully absurd. Now, dear listeners, stand and applaud, or at least murmur appreciation, before you rush off to your own battles, grand or mundane. For if there's one lesson from Troy, it's this: when life hurls a wooden horse at you, check inside before you carry it home, or, at the very least, keep your helmet handy.